Today's video, my most wanted legendaries in Raid Shadow Legends. Regardless of account, I just want these units on anything, anywhere. But instead of doing 1 through 10 list in order, I am going to just say the legendaries that I want, and I will let you guys, if you so choose, decide on what order they should be in. Before we get that started though, Plarium's 16th anniversary, you thought it was Raid Shadow Legends 16th anniversary, Plarium's 16th anniversary, we got some nice stuff here. We got 500,000 silver, we have 200 energy, which should, you know, last about 5 minutes. We have Primal Shard, we have Sacred Shard, and we have 100 auto battles, chicken, we got some brews. Not bad. I mean, for free stuff that they're just giving away, because Plarium's like, hey, we turned 16. Now you can drive. Let's get the video started.
I'm looking for a fun new RPG to play on my telephone. I wonder if there's anything good.
Brother, you gotta try the most glorious RPG that has ever come to the mobile platform, Raid Shadow Legends.
Oh, is it any good?
Is it any good? It will literally... Yeah, it's good, yes!
Wowee! I'm gonna go download it right now.
Are you serious? You're gonna miss out on all the free legendaries.
Free legendaries?
You want a free legendary? Use the promo code or the link in the description for a brand new free legendary Elenaril.
Wow!
And as soon as you hit level 10, you get a free Maus Mage epic right in your inbox.
Wowee!
At level 20, you get a free epic Uugo.
Neato!
And at level 30, another free epic Fayne.
Well, that's swell.
If all of that wasn't even enough, you can also use one of the following promo codes for a brand new account for another free legendary.
Free legendaries?
Get Alice for a legendary Alice the Wanderer.
Neato!
Get Loki for a free legendary Loki the Deceiver.
Ooh!
MONKEYKING for a free legendary Sun Wukong.
Super cool!
TREEHUGGER for a free legendary Greenwarden Ruarc.
Oh!
Or you can use the code Desert Queen for a free legendary Tuhanarak.
Those seem like some really lovely choices.
But you have to use the QR code or the link or you get nothing. And make sure that you use the promo code for your free extra legendary as soon as you start the account in the first 24 hours.
I'ma scan that QR code right now. Thanks, fella.
You're welcome, buddy. You're welcome.
Wrathos Blade Master, absolutely brutal, ridiculous damage dealer. He's got the first skill, Defense Break. If the target is a boss, this debuff cannot be resisted. You only need this half the time because he ignores 100% of defense with one of his skills when the target is a boss. Absolutely ridiculous. Attacks one enemy every second use of the skill round. Will attack all enemies instead. Super nice. Will also ignore 25% of target's defense. If the target is a boss, will ignore 100% of the target's defense. Ridiculous. Attacks all enemies before attacking. Place a 30% increased crit damage buff and a 30% increased speed buff on this champion for 2 turns, which synergizes really nicely with his Wrathos Mastery. Inflicts 50% more damage against targets under HP burn debuffs, receives 25% less damage from enemies under HP burn debuffs, and every 5th skill used by this champion deals 200% more damage. And he's got a crit damage buff. And he ignores defense. It's ridiculous. And he has the increased ally attack in dungeons by 30%. Absolutely brutal, ridiculous damage dealing unit. Thor Hammer basically solos half the dungeons in the game. I'm sure you've seen this all over the place. People soloing things with Thor. Absolutely ridiculous damage dealer unit. Of course, I'm going to have a whole lot of damage dealers on here and things that solo dungeons and do crazy damage to bosses. But I got the Loki, but I regret not being more active and actually trying to get this more. I didn't realize how insane he was going to be at the very beginning. So yeah, hindsight is 20/20, I suppose. Wrath of Mjolnir? You know what? I've watched the movies. I still don't know how to say that. Attacks one enemy 2 times, 20% chance of repeating the attack. Each hit decreases target's turn meter by 10%. Fulminous Ricochet. You know what? I can't say any words. It doesn't really matter what they are. Attacks all enemies after hitting the initially selected enemy. All other enemies will be hit in a random order. Each subsequent hit following the initial hit will increase the damage inflicted by 25%. Stacks up to 100%. Will ignore block damage and unkillable buffs. Does not work against bosses. We have the Hammer of Heaven. Attacks all enemies before attacking. 50% increase attack buff. 30% increase crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. Yikes, that's a lot of damage. 75% chance of permanently decreasing the resistance of each enemy by 10%, stacks up to 50. Also has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed on all enemies for 2 turns. Decreased speed plus decreased attack aid is also a decent amount of control. Sky Rupture passive. Every time this champion deals damage, increases the thunder counter, stacks up to 10. Each thunder stack increases this champion's damage by 3%, stacks up to 30%. So we have stacks, and then we have also increases attack buff and crit damage, just making him able to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Once the thunder counter reaches 10, attacks all enemies, places a stun debuff for 1 turn. After the attack, the thunder counter resets to 0. And then we, of course, have the attack leader skill. Everything synergizes together. So many AoEs, lots of control, great unit. Something I really did. I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't think he was going to be just like demolishing everything everywhere. So this one, not quite like everything else on the list that I've been saying how much I want. This is not really a crazy OMG damage dealer for dungeons and things like that. This is a very heavy control unit for PvP. Arman's the Magnificent. He's got the leader skill, 28% speed lead for arena. He's got the first skill attacks one enemy, 35% chance of increasing the cooldown of a random active skill by 2 turns. Fills the champion's turn meter by 10% for each turn added to the cooldown. He's such a crazy control unit. We've got the attacks all enemies, not from that skill, from all of his skills and his leader skills. A great PvP control unit. Attacks all enemies, steals all the turn meter of each target except enemies under sheep debuffs. Also places a stun debuff for 1 turn on all enemies not under a sheep debuff, and he does like doing those sheep debuffs. This goes down to 3 turns. We also have, for my next trick, place a sheep debuff on an enemy for 1 turn. This debuff cannot be blocked. Then has a 75% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. Fills this champion's turn meter by 5% for each buff removed. Goes up to 100%. And also down to 3 turn cooldowns. End cycles. Ridiculous. 3 turns. He's got the sheep, he's got the strip, and then he's got increased attack gauge. Wild. Absolutely wild control unit. Master of Ceremonies passive. Whenever a sheep debuff is removed or expires on an enemy, increase the cooldown of a random active skill on that enemy to its max. Fills this champion's turn meter by 10% for each turn added to the cooldown. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only one will activate. Crazy PvP control unit. Absolutely wild. Freya Fate Weaver. This is a unit that we actually just had an increased chance of getting from the summon portal. Of course, I didn't have enough summons to actually get her, but this is a great support unit. I know she's a defense unit, but she is a support unit. She cleanses, she does immunity, she does attack power buffs and shields, and prevents the death of the unit with the highest crit damage on the team. Really strong support unit. Attacks all enemies. 25% chance of placing a provoke debuff or 1 turn. Attack activates this skill when a shield buff placed by this champion is removed by damage. Occurs once per turn. She does shield buffs on the entire team. 60% increased defense for 2 turns. Goes down to a 3 turn cooldown, which is really nice. Plays a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's defense and each target champion's max HP. We also have the Gold Weave. Remove all debuffs from all allies. Place a block debuff on them for 2 turns. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. Goes down to 3 turns. Very nice cooldowns. Really nice support unit. And then the Divine Foresight passive. Increase this champion's defense by 5% each time an ally inflicts a critical hit, which makes the shield even stronger over time. Prevents the death of the ally with the highest crit damage except this champion, and keeps them alive with 1 HP when hit with a fatal hit. If there are multiple champions on team with this skill, this effect will only activate once. Then heals that ally 20% of their max HP and activates an instant turn effect on them. Really nice support and defense in all battles. Really nice support and death prevention. Solid unit. You thought Thor was crazy. Odin is even crazier. He's got AoE strips into defense breaks, into stuns. He's got ignore defense. He has a 40% void speed lead. Wild. He's got the first skill, also has a berserk debuff on it as well. Attack one enemy, 50% chance of placing a berserk debuff for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be placed on bosses. So what berserk does is kind of like berserk in Summoner's War. It does with the Barbaric Kings, it does increase damage that they deal, and it also does increase damage that they receive at the same time with an enemy under berserk debuff. We also have this strip all the enemy's buffs and does a defense break and a stun. Goes up to 100% activation rate, 3-turn cooldown when it is maxed. Ridiculous. As Guardian Judgment, attacks one enemy before attacking, steals all buffs from the target. The damage inflicted by the skill depends on the target's type. Attack does damage based on target's attack. Defense will inflict damage based on target's defense. HP support bosses will inflict damage based on the target's max HP. Damage that does damage based on the boss's max HP. Really nice, especially when it ignores 100% of the target's defense. And if the target was killed by the skill, revives a random dead ally with 50% HP and 50% turn meter. He doesn't even need a passive, but he does also have a passive. Every 9 turns, place a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn, and also applies a buff spread, taking all buffs from this champion and placing them on all allies. If you have a stack of buffs on him, it gets absolutely ridiculous. And then he, of course, has the leader skill. 40% void. It's only void and it's only arena, but it is still a very strong speed lead. Legate Tiox. Everyone just refers to him as Tiox. This is something that I really wasn't as excited about until I saw all of the Hell Hades Tiox, and then everyone subsequently using Tiox in like every single dungeon for some crazy damage. So another damage dealer. I know I am very partial to the damage dealers, but they're the most fun, right? So we have, he also does increase crit damage as well. He does a lot, and he does some ignore defense and all of the fun things. We have Guerrilla Tactics. Attack one enemy 2 times. The ally with the highest crit damage will team up and join the attack, which is always very strong. The ally joining the attack will use their default skill. Damage dealt by this champion, and the ally joining the attack will be increased by 10% for each debuff on the target. He does more for every debuff on the target as well, so you want to bring him in with debuff-heavy teams. Draconic Retribution. Attack one enemy 3 times. Each hit will ignore 10% of the target's defense for each debuff on the target. Each hit will also increase this champion's attack by 10%, stacks up to 50%. Grants an extra turn if this attack kills the enemy. Potentially ridiculous. If you've ever played Summoner's War, you know how the Fire Inagami works. Sometimes ridiculous things happen. And then we have the Wrath of Legion, level 1, attacks all enemies. Before attacking, place a 50% increased attack buff and a 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. You're seeing a pattern here with some of these units and why I like them. Place an extra hit on enemies under any debuffs. Again, debuff synergy. He also has some unity skills as well, so you want to make sure that you bring other unity allies with him. This way, he just gets even stronger. So, 1 faction ally will ignore strengthen, ally protection, and shield buffs. 2 faction allies, if enemies are killed by this skill when under a debuff, place a block revive debuff on them. 3 faction allies deals 20% more damage for each debuff on each enemy. Stacks up to 100%, which means he gets crazy in faction wars as well. We also have survival at all costs. Fills this champion's turn meter by 5% whenever an enemy or an ally receives a debuff. Again, if you're bringing debuff heavy teams, he gets ridiculous in so many different ways. So every team should be a debuff heavy team anyway. We have 1 faction ally, 25% chance to counterattack whenever an ally is attacked by an enemy under a debuff. Ridiculous. If there are multiple, like this just escalates so fast already. If there are multiple champions on a team with this skill, this effect will only activate once. 2 faction allies decreases the damage this champion receives from enemies under debuffs by 50%. More synergy there. And the damage allies that receive from enemies under debuff by 20%. 3 faction allies. All allies are immune to sheep debuffs. And then we also have the ally attack in all battles by 30%. And then the ally accuracy in all battles by 40%. For Lizardmen. But really, really strong unit that just, like, he's got this potential. He's already good. And then, if you just feed him allies that work well and synergize with him, he just gets ridiculous. So I definitely understand why Hell Hades likes this so much and why so many other people like this as well. Chishure Cat, basically like a Shadow Cat Assassin. They should rename it to Shadow Cat Assassin. So this unit keeps continually putting perfect veils on himself. He will increase his speed. He has a speed lead everywhere. He also decreases the speed of enemies. I believe it does not decrease the speed of bosses though, but he keeps giving himself perfect veils so he takes less damage and then he nukes things like crazy. I had the lovely experience of fighting one of these 2 days ago and absolutely wrecked me. Attacks one enemy. First skill, Phase Claw, attacks one enemy if the champion is under Veil or Perfect Veil, which he gives himself. Attacks all enemies instead. Place a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn. Okay, so the first skill even gives him a Perfect Veil. Second skill, Feline Frenzy, attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit will decrease the enemy's speed by 1%. Not that crazy until it stacks, and then even so, not ridiculous, not like 50% decrease enemy speed, but also increases his speed by 1%, stacks up to 10% as well. If this skill kills an enemy, place a Perfect Veil buff on this champion, the ally with the lowest turn meter for 2 turns. Damage based on attack and speed, which is you make him fast, you make him damage dealer. Right, he's got the speed lead here as well. Attacks all, speed lead attacks all enemy. Yep, increases ally speed everywhere. Then we have the Grinning Helix, attacks all enemies. Before attacking, place a Perfect Veil buff and a 50% increase attack on this champion for 2 turns. Grants an extra turn if this attack kills an enemy. So potentially, Grinning Helix on a 4-turn cooldown into getting an extra turn, and then AoE Phase Claw. And then already, Grinning Helix is going to have a decreased cooldown after that as well. Shadow Smile passive. If this champion is under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff, which is like all the time, turn meter fill effects are 30% more effective. Also, this champion is under a Veil or Perfect Veil buff. This champion's attack will ignore 15% of the target's defense, inflicts 15% more damage. The synergy is right there. Active effect. Whenever this champion is about to receive a hit that would drop their HP below 20%, blocks the incoming damage and place a block damage and a Perfect Veil buff on this champion for 1 turn. Really nice. Probably not one of the top 10 best units in the entire game, but this is one of my top 10 most wanted because he is just a lot of fun. I like assassin style units. Not a damage dealer. This one is a support unit that will prevent a lot of damage to allies. I believe it's 25% to allies taking AoE attacks. Perfect Veils, has some immunity, has some attack power buffs, has a speed lead as well, 19% speed in all battles. We see like all the units that I like have speed leads or attack power leads. So Abyssal Invocation attacks 1 enemy 2 times, place a shield buff equal to 10% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns on the champion, the ally with the lowest HP. We have a place block debuffs buff and a 50% increased attack buff for all allies for 2 turns. Perfect Veil on all allies except for this champion for 2 turns, reusable in 4 turns after it's skilled up. And then we have a AoE Revive, revives all dead allies with 70% HP. Raid Shadow Legends loves the revives. This is a big difference between this game and Summoner's War. In Summoner's War, like, revives are okay every so often here and there, but in Raid Shadow Legends, revives are like half the units that you're built, half the support units you're building have revives on them. Place a Veil buff on all allies except for this champion for 1 turn. Place a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. And then a passive decreases damage taken by all allies from AoE attacks by 25%, 15% from bosses. So she prevents a lot of damage. She does immunity. She enables your damage dealers to do more by having the attack power buff. And then if all else fails, you got the crazy revive. And I have seen some of these teams that are like very, very specific units and turn order and like cheese teams for some of the hard dungeons where like Eniri will bring this one back, for example, and then this one will bring all the other units back, and then like after the boss tries to wipe the entire team. But it's really, really crazy what some of these synergies can do. She's just a great all-around unit. I feel like Tuanarach also should be a mention here because while I'm mentioning some other units that are like Tuanarach, people have the ability to get Tuanarach for new players using the QR code on the screen right now. You see the QR code. Yeah, there we go. We got to make sure it's actually on the screen. Look at that placement right there. It's a beautiful integration. So Newt is not on anyone's list, and the reason for that is not because he's not good, it's just that everyone else has him except for the very few that don't have a Newt, and there's even all of these dungeon guides where it's like, yeah, just use your Newt. Cool, okay, yeah, let me do that. So he is basically a crazy boss killer. That is what he does. And you wouldn't really think it by looking at his skills, because the first time I saw his skills, I was like, okay, he's got some potential, but it doesn't really seem anything too ridiculous. But this Blessed Bash third skill is wild. Does a ton of damage to bosses. Dwarven Might, level 1, attack an enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 80% chance of decreasing target's turn meter by 15%, which is also pretty good for bosses, because it's a triple hit, decreased turn meter. Very strong. If the turn meter is not decreased, each hit has a 80% chance of placing a freeze debuff on the target for 1 turn. We have an attack all enemies, 75% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack, and a 25% weaken on all enemies for 2 turns. Also place a counter attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. Damage base. Oh yeah, he's a defense scaling unit, by the way. I'm sure half of you already know that, because half of you already have, like 80% of you already have him. I am in the 20% that don't. But this goes up to a 100% debuff chance, and then a 3-turn cooldown for the AoE, and then we have the Blessed Bash. It seems crazy to have a 5-turn cooldown, goes down to 4-turn cooldown for a single target skill. Attacks 1 enemy 3 times. Each hit decreases the target's defense by 3%, stacks up to 30%. Also heals this champion's by 30% damage dealt. It's just that this does a ridiculous amount of damage to bosses. That's the reason why. Aside from that, you wouldn't really know how crazy he is by just reading his skills. And then he has the no holding back when counterattacking deals 100% of damage instead of 75. And then he has the accuracy leader skill in dungeons, which is kind of nice for things like the debuffs, right? So crazy damage dealer though. If you're new to Raid Shadow Legends, this is not going to seem as crazy as it actually is in practice. Last but not least, Calaxax, if it wasn't already obvious by the poison radiating out of his suit of armor, this is a unit that has a lot of poison synergy. Now, he's not one of the 10 best units in the game. He's not. He is a ridiculous unit for soloing dragons, and that's why I want him, because he's got so much poison synergies, and he also counters poison as well. Let's take a look at what he does. First, skill attacks 1 enemy, 40% chance of increasing the duration of all poison debuffs on the target by 1 turn. Heals this champion by 2.5% of their max HP for each poison debuff on the target. Doesn't seem like much, but you're going to be putting a lot of poison debuffs on the enemies, I can assure you of that. Corruption Locust attacks 1 enemy, place an extra hit for each poison debuff on the target. We have extra poison synergy, up to 3 extra hits. And then we have the Storm of Vitriol, attacks all enemies, damage increases according to the number of poison debuffs on each target. Poison, 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 damage based on attack, and enemy max HP as well. And then we have the Pestilence. This is where you get all the poison from. Places 4 5-star poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns at the start of each round. Has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff on all enemies for 1 turn at the start of each turn. Whenever an enemy places a poison debuff on this champion, instantly removes it and places it with a 15% continuous heal for 2 turns. This guy's just like obliterates the dragon as if it was so easy. And then he has the speed in all battles by 19%. You can also synergize him with a poison detonator unit for easy wave clears for dungeons as well. But it's not one of the 10 best. It's just I've seen what he can do, and he's kind of fun, and I kind of want him based on that. So anyway, that's it for, he's kind of more niche than a lot of the other ones on list. But anyway, that's it for this one. Let me know what order they should be in terms of, I mean, I kind of know a little bit, but I want you guys to have fun with that. Hopefully, you guys get some of your top 10 most wanted units as well this coming week, with this coming several weeks, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of summit events going on. So anyway, that's what I'm saving mine for. That's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't already started playing Raid Shadow Legends, you can do so by using the QR. I got to put this on the screen as many times as humanly possible. Anyway, that's it for this one. See you as always in the next one.